I always believed our neighborhood had its fair share of difficult personalities, but Karen Henderson was in a category entirely her own. Every community had a Karen, but ours had the Karen, president of the homeowners association, self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac, and mother to a teenage boy who inherited every ounce of her entitlement. I had managed to stay clear of her chaos for the most part, until the day she crossed a line so severe that even her loyal supporters could not defend her. My daughter, Emily, was 16, quiet, studious, and far too kind for her own good. She had always been polite to everyone, even when they did not deserve it. Karen's son, Blake, had decided long ago that Emily would eventually agree to date him. He strutted around like a prince, assuming every girl in a 5-mile radius was just waiting for him to choose one. Emily, however, had absolutely no interest in him. She had turned him down once in freshman year, again during sophomore year, and at least 3 more times during the past semester. Each time she rejected him, she remained polite, but firm. Blake did not understand the word no. On a Thursday afternoon, I arrived home from work a little later than usual. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Emily standing near the mailbox with one hand pressed against her cheek. She looked stunned, frozen, as if someone had just delivered news she could not comprehend. I got out of my truck quickly, calling her name. She lifted her head, and I could see her eyes glistening. "Emily? What happened?" I hurried to her, my chest tightening. Her lower lip trembled. "Dad." She slapped me. At first, my brain did not connect the words. "Who slapped you?" "Karen," she whispered, voice cracking. "Mrs. Henderson." A surge of anger hit me so fast I felt lightheaded. "She did what?" Emily tried to explain through tears. She had been checking the mail when Blake approached her, again, asking why she was ignoring him. She politely told him she was not interested and that he needed to stop bothering her. Blake began raising his voice, accusing her of thinking she was too good for him. Emily stood her ground, but she was visibly shaken. That was when Karen stormed out of her house. According to Emily, Karen did not walk, she charged. Her voice carried across the street as she accused Emily of breaking her poor son's heart and leading him on. That part did not surprise me. Karen had always believed Blake could do no wrong. But then, in the middle of her hysterical rant, she asked Emily one question. "Are you refusing to date my son?" Emily told her yes. And Karen slapped her. An open-handed slap across the face. Emily recoiled from the force, and Blake reportedly smiled. I clenched my fists just hearing it. My daughter had never lied to me about anything serious in her life. If she said Karen slapped her, then Karen slapped her. "Come inside," I said quietly, guiding her toward the house. My voice was calm, but it was the kind of calm that only appeared right before a storm. Emily held onto my arm, still trembling. Once inside, I had her sit down while I fetched an ice pack and examined the mark on her cheek. It was red, swollen, and unmistakable, a handprint. My jaw tightened, and I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. I had tolerated a lot from the HOA. I had tolerated a lot from Karen. I had ignored petty complaints, unreasonable demands, and endless power trips. But laying a hand on my daughter? Absolutely not. While Emily rested, I stepped outside again. Karen was still in her driveway, arms crossed, lecturing Blake about weak girls who cannot handle a real man. The moment she saw me walking toward her, her expression shifted from arrogance to irritation, as if I were the one disturbing her afternoon. "Oh, good," she said. "I was going to speak to you anyway. Your daughter is disrespectful, and she..." "You slapped my child," I said, my voice low. She rolled her eyes. "Do not be dramatic. I disciplined her because she was being rude to my son. Maybe if you..." "Stop talking," I said sharply. Karen blinked, stunned. "You assaulted my daughter," I continued. You put your hands on a minor. You injured her because she refused to date your son. That is not discipline. That is not parenting. That is assault. You are overreacting, Karen huffed. Blake deserves someone like her, and she keeps humiliating him. Someone had to teach her a lesson. I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. She truly thought she was justified. You will regret putting your hands on my daughter, I told her. I promise you that. Karen scoffed, waving me off like an inconvenience. Do what you want. The HOA supports me. She had no idea how badly she had just miscalculated. Because she did not know who she was dealing with. And she did not know how far I would go to protect my daughter. This was not over. Not even close. The next morning, the house felt heavier than usual. My daughter Emma barely touched her breakfast. She kept stirring her cereal until it turned soggy, her eyes staring blankly at the table. Every so often, she winced. I knew the reason, her cheek was still swollen where Karen had slapped her. Does it hurt? I asked softly. She nodded. A little. But I'm more embarrassed than anything. You have nothing to be embarrassed about, I said. You said no, and she assaulted you. That's on her. Emma sighed. Dad, please don't make a big deal out of it. Her son is already messaging me like I'm the bad guy for disrespecting his mom. I felt my anger rise again. He messaged you? Yeah, she said, sliding her phone across the table. Look. There were several messages from the boy, Kyle, a 16-year-old who had inherited every bit of his mother's entitlement and none of her restraint. My mom said you provoked her. If you just agreed to date me, it wouldn't have happened. Your dad better not make trouble. My mom knows the HOA board. I clenched my jaw. He's threatening you. Dad, I really don't want drama. Emma, I said calmly, this isn't drama. This is harassment. And what she did is a crime. Before she could reply, her phone buzzed again, not with a text, but with a notification. Emma frowned, unlocked her screen, and gasped. Oh no. What? Someone recorded it. I moved closer. A video had been posted in a local community group. The title read, HOA woman slaps teen girl for rejecting her son. My heart dropped. The video was clear. Very clear. It captured everything. The yelling. The slap. Emma stumbling back. Karen storming off afterward, muttering something about respect and raising kids properly. And the comments were exploding. Is this the woman from Willow Oak Court? She's a menace. Call the police. That's assault. This HOA is out of control. Someone needs to stop her. I will testify if needed, I've seen her harass kids before. A dozen neighbors chimed in with their own stories, packages stolen, bikes confiscated, threats over yard decorations, even demanding a kid mow the whole neighborhood because his grass was too long. The truth spread fast. Emma covered her face with both hands. Dad. This is humiliating. No, I said. This is accountability. By noon, my phone started ringing non-stop. The first call was from a neighbor. Then 2 more. Then 5. Some apologized for not stepping in sooner. Others shared what Karen had done to their families. One even revealed Karen had bullied her into paying illegal HOA late fees. Another said she had threatened to call CPS on a mother who let her kids play in their own driveway. By the time I finished the 7th call, one thing was clear. Everyone had a Karen story, but no one had dared fight back. But now? Now everyone had video evidence. At around 2 p.m., I received an unexpected knock. Standing on my doorstep were 2 HOA board members, Tom and Melissa, looking like they'd spent the entire morning trying to put out fires. Can we speak with you?" Tom asked. I crossed my arms. "Depends. Are you here to defend Karen?" They exchanged a nervous glance. Melissa shook her head. "No. Actually. The opposite." Melissa handed me a printed statement that looked like it had been drafted in a rush. "The Willow Springs HOA does not condone physical violence, harassment, or abuse of minors. We are looking into the matter and considering disciplinary actions." I raised an eyebrow. "Considering?" "Well," Tom said quietly, "Karen is difficult. And she's been on the board longer than we have. We need to gather more information." "You have the video," I said. "What more could you possibly need?" Tom swallowed. "Her husband is the treasurer. They have influence." There it was, the reason everyone stayed quiet. Fear. But not anymore. "I will be filing charges," I told them. "And I expect the HOA to take action. Fast." Melissa nodded quickly, relieved. "Honestly? That would make things easier for all of us." After they left, Emma sat beside me on the couch. "What's going to happen now?" she asked quietly. "A lot," I said. "But the most important thing? You're safe. And she's not getting away with this." Emma rested her head on my shoulder, finally letting herself relax. I wrapped my arm around her and promised silently. "No one touches my child and walks away clean." Hours later, as the sun dipped low, my phone buzzed again. This time, not with calls, not with messages, but with a direct notification from the local police page. They were asking to speak with us regarding the incident. Behind the screen, the officer's message was clear. "We saw the video. We need statements. This is assault." Emma looked at me, wide-eyed. "Dad. It's happening." "Yes," I said, grabbing my keys. "Now she pays." The moment we left the principal's office, you could practically feel the entire school buzzing. News travels fast in small communities, especially when the story involves a well-known HOA Karen, a slapped teenager, and a father who refuses to stay quiet. By the time lunch rolled around, every hallway was humming with whispers. Some students looked at my daughter, Emily, with sympathy. Others kept glancing toward Karen's son, Mason, who walked around red-faced, furious, and embarrassed. For once, the attention wasn't because he was the popular boy. It was because everyone now knew what his mother had done. That night, I sat with Emily at the dining table, going over the events again, not because I doubted her, but because I wanted her to feel safe enough to talk. She kept tugging her sleeve down, covering the faint red mark that had already begun to fade. "Dad. She really thought she could force me to date him," she muttered, voice small. "Like him some kind of prize to be traded." My jaw clenched, but I kept my voice steady. "You're not a prize. You're a person. And the only person who gets to decide who you date, if anyone, is you." Emily nodded but looked unconvinced. "There's a kind of fear that lingers when an adult betrays your trust, especially one from your own neighborhood." I leaned forward and added, "This isn't over. She doesn't get to walk away from this." I meant it. The next morning, I expected things to calm down, but I underestimated Karen's talent for making everything worse. As soon as I stepped outside, she came marching down the sidewalk, her haircut angrier than usual, her expression twisted with outrage. "How dare you embarrass me in front of the school staff?" she snapped before I'd even opened my car door. I raised an eyebrow. "How dare you put your hands on my daughter?" "Oh, please," she scoffed. It was a light tap. She was being dramatic. "And your daughter refuses to cooperate with the social structure of this community." "Social structure?" I asked, genuinely confused. Yes, she said proudly. We maintain standards here. My son is one of the most desirable young men in the neighborhood. Your girl should have been grateful. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to laugh. You assaulted her because she rejected your son. Karen's face flushed. I disciplined her because she was disrespectful. And am going to hold you legally accountable for that, I said calmly. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't dare. I already did. She froze. For the first time, I saw fear flicker in her expression. What? What does that mean? She whispered. Before I could answer, a car rolled to a stop in front of my driveway. Detective Carter, a friend of mine who had already been assigned the case, stepped out. Karen blanched. You called the police on me? She croaked. I didn't answer. Carter did. Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about an incident involving a minor. Karen spun toward me, furious. You're ruining my life. No, I said. You did that. Carter led her to the sidewalk, where he explained her rights. She wasn't being arrested, not yet, but she was definitely being investigated for assaulting a child. I watched her face cycle through stages: denial, anger, panic, and finally the realization that she might actually face real consequences for once. When she started shouting about how she knew people, Carter shut her down instantly. That may be true, he said calmly. But you assaulted a minor in public. That's not something we overlook. She sputtered like she couldn't believe the world didn't operate by her rules. Later, when I went to pick Emily up from school, teachers and parents approached me to express their support. Apparently, Karen had spent years bullying other kids, stealing sports team spots, sabotaging art projects, even trying to get certain students removed from classes because she thought her son deserved special treatment. No one had ever pushed back before. You did the right thing, the guidance counselor said. She's been terrorizing people for years. Emily overheard that and looked up at me, eyes softer than they had been in days. Dad. Are you sure we're doing the right thing? She asked. Yes, I assured her. This isn't about revenge. It's about making sure she doesn't hurt anyone else. She nodded slowly. Okay. But I knew Emily was still nervous. Karen's temper, her connections, her ability to manipulate people, they had always made her dangerous. And though she was finally facing consequences, the real storm hadn't hit yet. That evening, I received a call from the school board. Not only were they launching an internal review, but they wanted my testimony at a disciplinary hearing. They had taken the situation seriously, far more seriously than I expected. When I hung up, I took a long breath. Things were moving, but I had no idea how far this would go. All I knew was this. Karen was cornered. And cornered people tend to strike back. The courtroom was packed, so full that people were standing shoulder to shoulder along the walls. It seemed everyone in the neighborhood had shown up. Some were there out of curiosity. Some came because they had their own history with Karen. But most, I suspected, came because they wanted to see justice served. My daughter, Emily, sat beside me at the plaintiff's table. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, but she looked calm. Strong. Resolute. I squeezed her hand and whispered, "Whatever happens today, you already won. You stood up for yourself." She smiled, just barely. "Thanks, Dad." Across the room, Karen sat at the defense table, flanked by her lawyer and her red-faced teenage son, Jacob. Karen didn't look nervous. She wore an exaggerated pearl necklace and an expression that screamed I shouldn't even be here. She whispered rapid-fire complaints to her lawyer, pointing at us every few seconds like she was the victim. Jacob slouched in his chair, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. The judge entered, and the room went silent. Court is now in session for Emerson versus Carter, the clerk announced. The judge scanned the room. He looked tired already. After opening statements, the judge nodded toward our side. Plaintiff, call your first witness. We called Emily. She walked to the stand with the confidence of someone twice her age. She took the oath, sat down, and answered every question clearly and honestly. She told the court exactly what happened, Karen cornering her, demanding she date Jacob, and finally slapping her across the face when she refused. Did you provoke her in any way? My attorney asked. No, Emily replied. All I said was I wasn't interested. She got angry and slapped me. Did you fight back? No. I just walked away and called my dad. The judge watched her carefully. His expression hardened when the photos of the bruise on her cheek were submitted. When the defense cross-examined, Karen's lawyer tried to twist everything. Could it be that you misunderstood her tone? She says she simply tapped your cheek. Emily stared at him. My face was swollen for 2 days. I don't think a tap does that. The courtroom chuckled. Even the judge couldn't hide a smirk. Then came Karen's turn. She marched up to the stand like she owned the place. She adjusted her necklace, cleared her throat dramatically, and began spinning the wildest story imaginable. I was merely trying to guide the girl, she insisted. My son has very high standards, and I thought she was being unnecessarily rude. She disrespected me. She mocked me. And I did not slap her. I simply brushed her cheek to get her attention. The judge raised an eyebrow. Ms. Carter, are you aware there is security footage from the school courtyard? Karen froze. Her lawyer slowly sank in his chair. The judge signaled the bailiff, who wheeled in a TV and pressed play. There it was, crystal clear. Karen yelling. Emily backing up. Karen raising her hand and striking her. The gasp in the courtroom was so loud it echoed. Karen's eyes bulged. That video is taken out of context. The judge shook his head. It shows exactly what happened. Things only got worse for her. The prosecution also played audio of the phone calls she had made afterward, voicemails ranting about how the girl deserved discipline and how she would make sure the father learned his place. Every recording dug her hole deeper. By the time closing arguments came, Karen's face was pale and her shoulders sagged. She wasn't performing anymore. She was realizing, minute by minute, that she had destroyed herself with her arrogance. The judge returned after a brief recess to deliver his ruling. In this case, he began, the evidence overwhelmingly shows that Ms. Carter physically assaulted a minor without provocation. Furthermore, her subsequent actions show a clear pattern of harassment. Karen closed her eyes, bracing for impact. I hereby grant the plaintiff's request for a restraining order, compensation for medical treatment, damages for emotional distress, and mandatory anger management classes for Ms. Carter. Additionally, Child Protective Services will conduct an evaluation, given the concerning behavior displayed. Karen gasped. You cannot do that. The judge looked at her sternly. Ms. Carter, I recommend you stop speaking before I add contempt of court. She sat down. Hard. Jacob stared at the floor, humiliated. Emily reached for my hand. Dad. We won. No, I said softly. You won. You stood up for yourself. After court, people approached us, neighbors, teachers, even folks we barely knew. Good for you, one woman said. Someone needed to stop her, another added. But the most surprising moment came when Jacob quietly walked up to Emily. I'm sorry, he muttered. For everything. She pushes me around too. Emily nodded. I hope things get better for you. He gave a tiny, grateful smile before leaving. As Emily and I walked to the parking lot, she finally let out a long breath. It's over, she said. Yeah, I replied. It is. But as I looked at her, strong, brave, unshaken, I realized something. It was not just a victory. It was a turning point. For her. For me. And for everyone who had ever been bullied by people who thought they were untouchable.